like traveling to different countries. Great, me too. Now, how many of you would like to travel to any part of the world and speak the language there? To feel at home and part of the culture in any country that you visit. When I received the IB Summer Scholarship, I knew that I wanted to travel to a Spanish-speaking country and use my language skills. Over the last few years, I've fallen in love with learning Spanish, reading books, watching movies, as well as the slightly different personality that takes over when I speak it. So, I traveled to Barcelona, Spain to study Spanish. When I arrived in Spain, though, my mentality shifted. I became so conscious of errors that I can make while speaking to locals as if, God forbid, they can tell that I'm not from here. And the closer I was to this unreachable line of fitting in, the more I realized that I never will. This reaction, which greatly limited me from actually improving my Spanish skills and enjoying the culture and country that I was living in, seemed natural and strangely logical. Growing up in a Russian Jewish immigrant family here in America, this is by far not the first time that I experienced this. My family has instilled in me a love of my culture, its poetry, its language, its people. But every time that I go to Russia to visit my grandparents, I feel like an outsider. This idea of not quite belonging in either country bothered me. But why did I feel that identity is supposed to be mutually exclusive? I further explored this concept when I traveled to Peru to study inequality and education in indigenous women, which I was also able to do thanks to the IB Summer Scholarship. In this beautiful country, I experienced the unique blend between Spanish Catholic and indigenous Incan cultures. In the town of Carga, the tall mountains keep a constant presence above thousands of houses in the valley below. In the central plaza of the city, you mainly hear Spanish, while on the outskirts, women with long gray braids quietly speak to each other in Quechua, the original language of Peru. I also visited more remote communities which are isolated by endless stretch of mountain. Here, people's income comes from selling alpaca wool, and diet consists of alpaca meat and potatoes. Only the male leaders of the town spoke in Spanish with a heavy Quechua accent. The closest high school is a 5-hour trek across the mountain, which we took and had to stop every 10 minutes. The school that I worked in offered girls living in these remote communities a free high school education and housing. One night we were having dinner with the girls living in the dorm. Many were leaning on each other's shoulders as if replenishing the lost love and care that their parents couldn't give them. They eagerly learned all of our names. It's a fine line between breaking the cycles of inequality and poverty existing in their families by giving them an education and completely neglecting their previous way of life. I saw a common theme. All these countries contain mixes of different people firmly gripping on to various other identities. For example, in Barcelona, Spain, people often identified more with their Catalonian identity than Spanish. In Peru, certain customs to certain people felt unauthentic, forced on them by foreign invaders. In Russia, my family always identified as Jews and not Russians. They say that the world is yours, but I couldn't stop asking myself, is it really? With people constantly claiming cultures, languages, traditions as uniquely their own, speaking as if their genetic makeup is their ticket to its ownership. Barriers exist not just between countries, but within them. At the core, we really are the same, yet racial tensions exist everywhere, and people believe in a lie of superiority. From all my travels, I've gained a new perspective on my multicultural identity. I now see living in and understanding other cultures not as taking a risk, but acquiring knowledge that allows me to connect to a wide range of very different people. An opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with someone to remember long after having it. What I learned, and what I want everyone here to take away from this, is that the term unique shouldn't be this cheesy, overused term that you only use to describe yourself in a college application. Just like all of these countries around the world, you don't have to artificially categorize yourself in a box of identity and instead own the truly unique person that you are. Now I'd like to share with you some pictures from my travels. So these pictures are from Spain. This picture right here is Blanca and I. She was an international student here last year. The picture in the center is my friends and I. We were in the National Museum of Barcelona, and it overlooks the whole city. These pictures are from Peru. So the first day we arrived in this town called Pisac, where there was a festival. This festival was a Spanish Catholic festival. It was called Virgen de Carmen, but it included many indigenous traditions. These are also pictures from the festival. I really like this picture right here. This woman did not speak Spanish, so I had a hard time trying to agree for her to for me to take a picture of her. This is in Calca, so you can see the tall mountains, which are gorgeous behind all the houses. This was on our way to this remote town. These are alpacas. These are pictures of this remote town called Barobamba. The houses are dispersed far away from each other, and it was just, they live in such poverty but still managed to keep all of their indigenous traditions. So this was in Barobamba. We learned about how these women that live in these poor towns managed to keep a business, and so we participated in a weaving workshop and learned how to dye the wool. They sell them in the business that happens between all of these really poor towns. And this is the school that I worked in. And in the background, I just want to leave you with this quote. Education is the most powerful tool that you have to change the world. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.